Well, thank you very much for sticking around for the final presentation. My name is Mahmoud Raya. I am a survey statistician at the U.S. Census Bureau. As well, I'm a GW alum and a master's student in economics at the Johns Hopkins University.
My name is Hassaan Sohail. I am a GW senior here. I have experience in project management, and I'm currently working at the State Department.
Hi, my name is Raza Khan, and my passion are emerging markets, and my experience is with emerging markets analysis and research. I'm also a senior here at GW, and I'm currently interning at Al Jazeera English.
So what does Hadara mean? The word Hadara is Arabic for civilization. We are an Egypt-specific brand with global appeal. What is the concept? Hadara is an Egypt-specific, vertically integrated statistical research solutions firm as well as an Egypt-focused database. Think of us as a LexisNexis for Egypt-specific data. We quantify sentiments of Egyptians, and we help our clients make informed decisions. We have the ability to design our own surveys. We have the ability to collect our own data, analyze it, and publish it to an Egypt-specific database. So what is the Hadara story? Well, if you ask our friends, they will tell you that it was our childhood dream to do Egypt research. Of course, that's only partially true. The real story is that in 2009, we recognized that there was a serious need for Egypt-specific political, economic, and social data. It simply didn't exist. Political polls, for example, things of that nature were not in the market, partially because political parties didn't really exist. Now there's a serious need and an entry for us into the market. So we started to talk to researchers. We talked to economists. I met with economists at the American University in Cairo, which is the most prestigious university in Egypt. And from them, I found out what their needs were. So what they told me was that there was a need for a housing price index. There's a need for a food price index. 80% of an Egyptian's income is spent on food, yet there's no real measurement of inflation for food, not just inflation overall. There's also a need for a construction price index. The real estate market in Egypt is a big market, but there's no measurement of the construction prices and the inflation in them. As well, they also told me that in Egypt today, the most reliable inflation index is published by the American Embassy in Cairo. This is this is a diplomatic institution, not an economic institution. Their main function and primary function is not to collect this information. So Hadara can step in and subcontract that and be able to provide them with that service so they don't have to waste their own resources on it.
So how do we become basically a Gallup for Egypt? Well, we have a phased approach. Our first phase is called the contract phase. This is really where we're going to conduct studies on a per-client basis. We're going to be on the ground in Egypt. We're going to be doing face-to-face survey studies. And then we plan to reinvest some of that revenue into developing our own surveys, as Mahmoud talked about, doing research in the housing market, in the food prices. And then we will finally, in our subscription phase, which is the bread and butter of our business model, we will publish these to an online database that's easy to use, that's easily manageable, and then we'll charge an annual subscription fee to get access to that database.
So during our first phase, we specialize in face-to-face surveys. Now you might ask yourself, why would you focus on a mode that is mostly expensive or more expensive than phone surveys, for example? The main reason is that Egypt is a country of 80 million people. 99% of those 80 million reside on 5% of the population. That's roughly the size of Iowa. So 80 million people live inside Iowa, basically. In addition to that, to get from Cairo to Alexandria, Egypt's two main cities, takes about 2 hours. So transportation costs are going to be minimized. In addition to that, there's a recent study that looked at the cost breakdown for surveys in developing countries, especially Africa. And they found that 25% of the cost for a face-to-face survey went for transportation costs. So here we're going to be able to minimize this cost because people are clustered. We have two main types, non-representative surveys and representative surveys. I'm sure you all know what a survey is, so I don't have to explain that to you. But the difference here is that a non-representative survey is going to be less precise than a representative one. With a representative survey, you're able to take the results that you get and extrapolate those and generalize them to the population and say within a confidence interval or a confidence level that 90% of Egyptians like oranges or don't like. And then with a non-representative survey, this is a type of survey where you basically, marketing firms do this. You go to a mall and you pick 1 in 10 people and say, what do you think of water or something? Our second type of service is going to, or excuse me, the second phase of our product is going to be the subscription phase. And like Hassaan said, this is really what we're after. This is the bread and butter of our company. This is what we're interested in. This is where we become synonymous with Egypt data. In this phase, we start to publish food price indices, housing price indices. We do election polls. We do approval ratings, things of that nature that don't currently exist. Especially with election polls, this is a real entry point because it doesn't exist. No one's doing this right now. There's one polling center in Egypt. It's a government-sponsored polling center. And obviously, their credibility is going to be close to zero, especially with things like election polls. With this service, you also get monthly briefs that tell you what the trends in the market are, economically, politically, socially. And finally, for this, we charge about $10,000 annual subscription. Now, let me put this price into perspective for you. LexisNexis charges $200,000 for an organization of 3,000 people or more per month.
So why would people want to pay $10,000 a year to get access to our database? Well, for one, we're a one-spot hub for statistics on Egypt. These are statistics that don't exist in the market at the moment, and really, we've asked people and they've expressed a need for this information. Number two, we're cost-effective. This doesn't mean that we can collect surveys cheaper than other competitors out there. It just means that our model, our subscriber model, is more cost-effective than doing in-depth market research studies, which can cost up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you essentially are getting the same information. Number three is pulse to the people. Because we're a startup, we're agile in the market. We can keep up with the transforming nature of the Egyptian society, especially with the recent revolution in January. There are some dinosaurs in the market who have been focusing on the business sector. They don't have the ability to continuously follow sentiments of the Egyptian population.
So there are three critical trends that are really going on right now in Egypt. New political freedoms. The game changer was the revolution. You can ask questions now that you could have never asked before. You can do things now that you couldn't do before. And election polls, opinion polls, approval ratings, these things matter now. Secondly, greater demand for data. Egypt has 80 million people. It's an emerging market, and it's a growing economy. With time, there will be increased demand for data. And finally, technology. Thanks to the iPad, thanks to new access to new technologies, it's more cost efficient and it's more efficient in general to do surveys. And that's what we can do.
Next slide. So who will be our potential clients? Well, I work at the State Department, and I'll tell you, we use opinion surveys all the time. We use them to gauge how effective our policies are being. We use them to really understand the sentiments of the populations where we have embassies. So I can say with a great deal of confidence that in the future, we expect some government institutions like the State Department, like USAID, who are present in Egypt right now, who will want access to our database. Additionally, there are international trade firms. There are EU government institutions in China that have a really strong interest in Egypt, and they will really be looking to our database. Second, these are all businesses that are currently operational in Egypt. There's also Orascom Telecom. That's an Egyptian firm. I want to highlight that there's also businesses in Egypt, not only international firms, who will need this information. And then thirdly, I want to focus on research institutions. These are really going to be our critical market entry points. In our city alone, we have about 100 think tanks that focus on the Middle East. I've circled all the ones where we've already established relationships. Again, as I said, these are going to be the critical market entry points. You can see here the Elliott School, which I'm a part of at GW. We have a Middle East Center. All of these places are hungry for information on Egypt, especially now with the revolution. They've asked us for this, and we're really going to use this to have swift entry into the market. So when you sum up businesses, governments, think tanks, the thousands of NGOs in Egypt on the ground right now, we estimate that our market's going to be around $100 million, and it's only going to grow in the future.
So currently we're in talks with economists at the American University in Cairo. I've met with them once and we have discussed the different indices that are in demand right now and the different types of data. So with your investment, with this seed money, we can get people on the ground and start to collect this information. And with this, we can actualize a contract. And from here, we can really build the credibility that we need to establish ourselves in this market.
All right, so we have two types of competitors. We have, on one hand, the domestic firms, and then the international firms. And really what sticks out with the domestic competition is NAGI Research. On the international side, we have YouGov, UK-based YouGov, and GfK. Now, with regards to the domestic firms, they offer a low price for their products and services, but it's generally low quality. It's the international firms that really deliver the high-quality service and products. So when you're looking at the domestic and international firms, they're really focused on the business sector. They're not doing things with political and social issues, especially the international firms. It's just really market research and the business sector. And there's also a difference in methodology between us and between them. Because, for example, YouGov, they do internet polling. The internet, there are only 16% of Egyptians, only 16% have reliable internet access. So it's not as accurate as face-to-face, what we specialize in. And finally, there's no one's doing the database. And we're going in, and our plan is to eventually build that database and really focus on that. So our competitive advantages are, firstly, we have a first-mover advantage. This is a virgin market. Secondly, survey digitization. By using iPads, by the new technologies that are out there, we've decreased our data entry costs by 10%. It's a lot easier to do, and it's more efficient now. And power of networks. To illustrate this case, let me give you the example of Paul Revere. So everyone knows that Paul Revere went out and he said the British are coming. But no one remembers William Dawes, who was with Paul Revere. Why? Paul Revere knew of the power of networks. And we know the power of networks too. With my work at Al Jazeera, with Hassan's work at State Department and Mahmoud's activism in the Egyptian American community, we have established relationships. And really, our marketing plan is focused on going after those. So our marketing strategy is, we start off with our contracts phase. And it's really our sales teams going after our established contacts. And secondly, our established relationships. And secondly, we publish free indices. So for example, we have a consumer attitudes index. We're going to publish this on our website. And the reason is we want to build that brand confidence, that brand reputation that, hey, Hadara is the place to go if you want quality, reliable, and accurate data on Egypt. And finally, the American University in Cairo pilot program. This is very important. Your seed money is going to go in and actualize this. AUC is the most prestigious university in the Middle East. This is really going to help us build that brand reputation that we need. And with that brand reputation, we're going to move into our subscriptions. This is where our sales team comes in again. So we launched in 2014 our database. By 2016, our plan is to get 500 subscribers. And with our brand reputation and with a dedicated sales team, we can do that.
So let me give you a timeline of the development of Hadara. Right now, we're poised on the ground in Cairo to collect face-to-face data. We have secured an office space in Cairo's business sector, and we're really just waiting for your investment to hire a field team and get our operations going. In year 2, we believe we would have collected our own data in terms of housing prices, food prices, the election polls that Mahmoud was talking about earlier. And then there will be a second round of investment, mainly in IT development and our database management. And by year 3, we can really roll out the Hadara database, where we feel that our business plan will really kick into full gear and we'll see exponential growth. So what do our revenue goals look like? Well, by 2013, based on per client surveys, we believe we can do 50 surveys. And we believe we can collect $1.5 million from contracts by 2013. By 2014, we will launch our subscription service. This is our database. And as Raza touched earlier, we have a goal of 500 subscribers by 2016. In conjunction with our contracts, we believe that by 2016, we can raise $7 million in annual revenue. Now, I'll let Mahmoud talk about all the great people who are going to help us achieve these goals.
So we are very happy and honored to have Mr. Mahmoud Raya, who is currently a nominee for the position of Cultural Minister in Egypt. Now, why is this important? Because he is the founder of El Sawi Culture Wheel, which is really the premier center for civic and cultural engagement in Egypt. This will help us to be more in touch with changes in society and trends that are taking place. We also have Mr. Mohammed Nadi, who's a procurement officer at the World Bank. He'll be advising on contracts and procurement. Wissam Sombor is the CEO of Clinical Systems Consultant, and he'll be advising us with data management and IT infrastructure. Abdul Hamid Murtagi is an analyst at the Central Bank of Egypt. And finally, Ms. Noor Al-Fawzan is at Latham & Watkins, and she'll be advising us with legal issues. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have demonstrated that we have first mover advantage because this is a virgin market. A gap does exist. This information is in demand by investors, by economists, by researchers, by government institutions. We have a scalable model because our subscription model allows for us to sell our products to a wide range of clients. And finally, we have a great management team, as you can see here. And we understand the value and the power of networks. And for these reasons, we ask you to invest in us so we can start this program immediately and produce results. Thank you.
I have a question. Did you say that your IT implementation will be in 2014? Our database, when are you going to have your database?
Yes, 3 years. We'd like to roll it out.
But your survey will start in 2012.
Yes.
Where are you going to keep them?
So at this point would have to use basically Excel and things like that to house this information, and then from there we can talk to subject matter experts and house it in a more in a better way.
The follow-up question: if you're going to keep in Excel and somebody's buying the survey or something, they want some kind of report. And do you think Excel can generate those kind of reports that they were looking for? Because they're looking for some sophisticated report from your survey.
Well, at this point, we wouldn't be producing that information for them. We'd be collecting this information and housing it, and then from there, we'd start to publish it. We'd have to consult with subject matter experts to find out how we'd be able to do that. But at this point, it's not our specialty or it's not our expertise to find out how we're gonna house it, but we would be producing it first and then selling it after that.
I don't want to take much time. One more question. I don't want to belabor the subject, but 1.7 million you showed that you're going to be generating. That is 2013? Mm-hmm. Okay. 12 or 2013?
2016.
16, sorry. So that is after you have,
That's after subscription
implemented.
service, yes.
After you have implemented this. Okay.
So this sounds like a professional services business to me. It sounds like, why couldn't you guys, smart guys, know the community well, passionate about the topic, go out and effectively sell a contract to, I don't know, maybe it's the World Bank, maybe it's to someone else who has appetite for the data. I get the fact that there's demand for the data. I get the fact that the data is now surfaced in a way where it's perhaps more available than ever before, and there's a really interesting opportunity for somebody to go over there and create sort of transparency to the data that has never been there before.
Sure.
But if there's demand for the data and there's budget available, couldn't you just go sell a consulting contract and say, look, I want to put X number of people on the ground for X amount of time, and you, Mr. Consulting Customer, are going to fund this, and basically start that way and do what you guys do well, which is survey data, and then use the consulting revenue to fund effectively over time the development of a software subscription product, which would basically be the data. I'm not sure that this is a software product business per se, and even if it was, I'm not sure I would finance it. Just curious as to whether you thought about going that path.
It's definitely a great question, but our expertise wouldn't be in consulting. We don't have the expertise right now to say, this is what this data means, you should do this and implement it in a nice way. We have the expertise in data collection, and so that's why we've chosen to specialize in that area. But we foresee consultants, for example, being our clients. They can come to us and take this data and do work with it and analyze it and apply another layer of analysis to it, and then pass it on to their client. So we, at this point, we don't see ourselves being able to consult on this information.
One more question. Are you guys moving there?
Yeah. With your investment, hopefully, we can get this started and head out there.
So if you look at what you want to create in Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
what company in the U.S. most reflects what you want to try and do?
I guess the best thing would be Gallup. They have this kind of information, and there's really no one in Egypt that has that kind of information right now.
Have you looked at any other emerging markets where somebody has tried to launch something like this from the ground zero?
No, I haven't really found any that have been doing this in emerging markets right now. So, but we can look at the example of Chile, and Raza has studied in Chile, and he'll tell you that, well, you can tell him about Chile's democratic process and how they went in about 10 years from, well, take it, Raza.
Well, a lot of people are worried about the investment climate, but this is a process. This decade is going to be tough for Egypt, but at the same time, climate, the political situation and economic growth, I can give you the example of Chile. First 8 years of democracy, there was a threat of a coup. But those first 8 years, from 1990 to 1998, the average annual real GDP growth rate was 8%. Now, we have looked at YouGov. YouGov is really focusing on the Middle East and Europe. YouGov is our UK-based competitor, and they're doing very lucrative contracts in the Middle East, especially the petroleum-producing countries. And they've been doing it, and they've been proven to be very lucrative for them.
In addition to that, I just want to add on to what Raza said. If you look at the foreign direct investment in Egypt, between 2000 and 2008, it increased from $500 million to $13 billion. So there is interest in this information, and there will be clients out there that are interested in this.
Got a question in the back.
Yeah, I just one question. I saw a similar model built in Jamaica, and the first for elections information initially, the first couple of cycles due to distrust of the populace, the information was erroneous before they realized that they weren't going to share this with government officials or anybody else. And then they started to, are you anticipating having any type of learning curve or lifetime where you will be producing, collecting data, but it might not actually reflect people's perceptions?
Absolutely. That's a great question. We definitely, so the way we foresaw this in the beginning is that we would start with phase one so that we can really hone our skills and really sharpen our skills by collecting data for other clients. And from that way, we can really have a solid understanding of the market and understanding of how these indices will function in Egypt. So we foresee phase one where we are able to really sharpen these skills, and then that's why we don't go in right away and say, okay, here's an index. We have a time period where we develop this first, and then we launch it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.